Hey everybody, Angela Santana here. I hope you're having a great day so far. I wanted to come at you with a video because I finally have time, or actually it came up in my queue for to watch, was The Real Dana. She usually does a live stream with Judge Joe Brown, and I love watching that. However, sometimes, I had a little criticism because, she can cut the judge off, and I'm like, wait a minute. But either way, she's getting answers, and I'm going to say on my part, I'm not looking for any kind of demographic. I come from a very diverse family where we're part white, part black, part Mexican, Puerto Rican, we're mutts. And a lot of people want to say it is a lot about skin color in Chicago, but a lot of it, to me, I've seen, and if you look at the U.S. Census, you will see that anyone who lives in a certain zip code, they're so less advantaged. Why is there, not as much advantage for them in one zip code? Meanwhile, that if you want to look at, in other words, if you want to look at the census map of Chicago, you're going to see where all the political donations come from. Plain English. And what these women are talking about, Miss Jessica Jackson and Miss Doris Lewis, great women. I was shot out of my house and neighborhood in Illinois, period. And, yeah, because they were trying to intimidate me for trying to bring this stuff to light. However, God has answered my prayers in the form of Miss Jessica Jackson, because all of this, people have to pay attention to what's going on, and I would love for you to hear that. So let me hush up. I just had to set this video up for you, and let's listen.
It's very insulting to me. I did not like it. I get tired of him doing that. He has a problem because he spent all this money on these illegal economic immigrants. That's why we have a deficit of $1 billion in Chicago. And I don't blame Pedro Martinez for not taking out a $300 million loan at 9 or 10% that the taxpayers are going to have to end up paying for. So I find what he did today, what he said today, was insulting to me.
So let's go back a little bit, because, it says school board members have now been invited to appear before City Council's Education Committee next week. Mayor Johnson nominated 6 new board members Monday following last week's mass resignation. So what is going on with Chicago's school board?
Well, back in, I know it was during the winter. I want to say maybe sometime in February. This is when Brandon Johnson, Mayor Johnson, went to Springfield, solicited Springfield to support that school board, 1456, I think, something like that, where it would give him the authority for the first time ever to have what he called a hybrid school board, which would be 11 elected officials and 10 appointed officials. What he did was what he continues to do, and that is bypass a process in order to achieve a certain goal. Now, if he would have waited to election time, he still could have appointed those people, but he's forever jumping a process to get what he wants. But me, and I said this when we went to Springfield, I have no confidence in his appointments. None. When you look at the appointments that he's already done in City Hall, when you look at the power he's already given the school board, the last thing he needs is to be able to appoint the people. It's going to be more the same, even if he puts black faces on the school board, because I think when I looked at it, it's a couple of black people on there. That's going to play out the same way you see it play out in City Hall. You have 20 black aldermen there, but they do what Mayor Johnson says to do. And what does Mayor Johnson say to do? Support these immigrants. It doesn't matter that black faces are there. What matters is he dictates an agenda. And I guess that's what I find more offensive than anything. The fact that we are hearing day in and day out about how the Republicans or the Republican candidate, in this case, Trump, is a dictator, when in real time, that's what we're seeing happening with the mayor of Chicago. He's straight out acting as a dictator. And if Chicago is the democratic machine that they claim it to be, look at the tone that it sets for the rest of the country, which makes it okay for this dictatorship type government that we're being subjected to right now. Something is going on in our government right now. And the easiest way to manipulate anything that a government wants or a public entity wants is to take it through the schools. That's the easiest way to do anything, because you have kids. They're the most vulnerable in terms of for education. It's a must-have. Parents need kids to be in school because they work. So it's like the same thing you saw them do with the jab. When they couldn't make anybody take it by mandates, what did they do? Put the mandate through the schools. See, the schools is tricky. And if he can appoint, which he did, his board members. Once you got a school district, you got the city.
Right.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
I was never for an elected school board because I knew what is happening would happen, just like Jessica just said. I was never for it because I knew that it would be very politicized. And I remember when Harold Washington said during his administration, he said, there's one thing you do not want to happen. You do not want the mayor of the city to take over your school system. And he was absolutely right, because everything that he said has come to fruition. So I was never for an elected school board because I know how political it could become. He's going to appoint 10 will be elected, and the 10 that are running, these are people who support Mayor Brandon Johnson, just like the ones that he's going to appoint. They're going to support Brandon Johnson. And the reason this school board resigned, according to news reports, is because they said they were tired of being pressured by Brandon Johnson to get rid of Pedro Martinez. Because for the most part, they got along with Pedro Martinez, and they were supporting him in terms of not taking out a $300 million loan at a 9 or 10% interest rate, which the taxpayers are going to end up paying for. So that's why they are resigning, according to the news reports and everything that I've read, because they were tired of him. So what does he do? He comes in, he appoints 6 people today, and all of these people are his hand-picked people because he's indebted to the Chicago Teachers Union. They gave him $2.3 million for his campaign. The American Federation of Teachers gave him $2.2 million. The Illinois Federation of Teachers gave him $1 million. So he's indebted to the Teachers Union. I was in the Teachers Union in Chicago for 37 years. It is not the Teachers Union that I became a member of when I first started teaching in Chicago. To me, they are a bunch of gangsters now. They're asking for an additional $50 million. And for that $50 million, they're asking the city to pay for their members if they want to have an abortion. They're asking,
You're funny.
They're saying they want the LGBTQ community, they want that agenda, that curriculum in the school system. So you know
Okay.
what? So
You know, these women say the best things. However, I believe that you should watch the full video. I'm not going to give up everything. I'm going to tell you the bits, you know, that I have taken away from here. I think it is some of the best conversation that they had, and you just keep on listening. However, I have some notes that I took from there, and this is something that people would need. They really, truly need to be educated on the agenda of Mayor Brandon Johnson and the leadership of the CTU. I'm not going to say that the rank and file are horrible, but the thing is, everything is being done by the upper echelon of everything, and now they're politicizing school. I mean, it's always been like that. It's always been crap. But one of the things that I took away from this video was at the beginning where Brandon Johnson is talking. When people ask questions that he doesn't want to answer, he starts going on, he pivots to him being a black man. So he's playing the victim card there. Oh, you're holding me accountable because I am a black man. Or I am, but the thing is, here's what, and hear me now. Now, many of you, and I know a lot of these influencers who are following things in Chicago, listen to this. Mayor Johnson is not just a black man. He is a Marxist. Okay? Marxism leads to communism. It's where, and believe me, if you are born and raised in Chicago, and you don't have a lot of economic options, you have to go to the schools that they dictate. Okay? They're like, if you live in this zip code, you go to that school. Only in the case if they're overcrowded will you get bused somewhere else. That's what happened with me and my sisters. We were bused to a really good school up north. But, you know, so, and it's still to this day, from when we were kids till now, you cannot say. I remember going to Chicago public schools saying, I need a service for one of my kids, and you don't have it. And they're like, well, you can't send them just anywhere, because if you send them out of the zip code, you gotta pay. So, yeah, send your kid, and just like that. They do not care about anything else. They'll tell you, well, send your kid to a private school and pay that tuition, while you're paying the taxes for that struggling school in your zip code, okay? So you're paying double. And I'm going to stop from that. So, like I said, that is a communistic tactic. You go where the state says you go. If you want to do anything different, you better pay for it out of your own pocket. And I remember I had to do that. I had to send my kids to private school because they had the things that I needed. So, and if they didn't, you know, there were some cases where I'm like, okay, well, I'll have to put them on a program or, you know, something like that. But the thing is, because you see how black people, everybody in Chicago is suffering. And I've done my research on the United States Census. Like I said, you know where the political donations come from, because their kids' schools are doing much better than your kids' schools. It's kind of like they have to keep these ghettos going. They have to, okay? And to them, that's their bread and butter. We're going to go to low information people who don't know much. And I am not in any way denigrating anyone. I have kin. Our family is very diverse. We have some white in us, some Mexican, some Puerto Rican, black, half, you know. We have everybody in our family. So, but the thing is, when I lived in a certain neighborhood in Chicago or a certain zip code, I noticed that everybody, no matter what color, creed, religion, background, anything, we were all struggling. And this is stuff that has happened. And you've only got these people coming around every 4 years talking smack about how nothing changes and how they're going to change everything. Little do you know that they've been in office for 20 years and could have changed this stuff back in the 60s or, you know, the 80s or whatever. But here's the biggest, if you don't hear anything from me or get anything from this video, you gotta listen here. Now, the kind of person that Mayor Brandon Johnson, and I know the upper echelon of the CTU are the same way, is the fact that when they start dictating all this stuff, telling you when you that you know you have no freedom to educate your kids wherever you want or any way, because you'll have to pay if you do opposite of what they say. Okay? I have a little problem explaining things, but the thing is this. The tactics that Brandon Johnson and the Chicago Teachers Union, they are using the tactics invented in Europe by what we would call our oppressors. They're using the same thing in Chicago. It's communism. They want to call it Marxism, collectivism. They're like, oh, everyone's going to get the same treatment. It's not true. Look at the Chicago, look at the demographics, look at the census in Chicago, and look from certain areas. I was from 60647 most of my life, zip code, and it was horrible. But then Rahm Emanuel came, and guess what? Yep, gentrification. But anyways, let me just go back, and I want to reiterate that Mayor Johnson, Brandon Johnson, and his upper echelon of the CTU are using this tactic that was invented, and it's going on in China right now, in Venezuela, all that stuff. They want to call it socialism, but it is outright communism, because the state is dictating everyone's agenda, whether or not they like it. And just like Chicago, they do that. See, here's the thing, and this is the kicker. I mentioned that communism and that Marxism, it all came from Europe. Now, why is this black man from Chicago named Mayor Brandon Johnson using the same tactics that his oppressors have adopted in Europe? Ask yourself that question. Okay? All that right there, all that you're going through, it's all slavery. And you all need to wake up and break those chains. Demand that you send your kids wherever you want to school. You want the best for your kids, they should want the same thing too. And if they're stopping you, you had better get rid of them. Okay? I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye.